everybody. Welcome back to the podcast yet again. I'm your host, Mike Wollard. I appreciate you taking the time just to check this out. We hit 100 downloads last week, which is super exciting for me. I didn't really know kind of the direction that this would go. I enjoy educating and I enjoy helping people make life change. So didn't really know exactly how many people would, enjoy this. And so I appreciate all of the support, all of the feedback and things like that. It's been an exciting journey so far. I wanted to kind of open up today's podcast just with a interesting quote that I saw. I actually watched a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V is kind of his social media platform. He's a guy I've been kind of following for a while for business advice, but his total perspective on how he runs his businesses, how he treats his employees, and even just treats everybody in general has been really cool to watch and kind of learn from. I'm reading through one of his books right now, just about finding your strengths and weaknesses and these character traits of running a successful business, et cetera, et cetera. It's been really eye-opening. That's kind of where I got the idea to do, my word of the month is all coming from his book. January is being gratitude, and just how most situations you can simply be grateful for what you have, and it totally changes your perspective on the entire situation. Empathy, lots of things like that. Just kind of helps you handle situations better. But this particular statement here, he's talking to a guy that's just trying to get, he just hasn't put his music out there. He's trying to produce music and just hasn't been able to do it yet. And, or says he hasn't been able to do it yet. He's really just kind of, coming up with excuses, but, the guy said that, it's just not perfect yet. It's not ready. I just don't want to put it out there yet. It's not finished. And Gary's response was super interesting. He says, "What is perfection? You made up your own barrier. You're just not confident. Perfection is the disguise of insecurity. People say, oh, it's not ready yet. It's not perfect. You're just insecure." And I was like, and I think there's a lot to that. I think for me, that's been a big part of my inability even just to get started, whether it's this podcast, whether it's fitness in general, whether it's posting to my stories, posting content, anything like that. You've got algorithms, all this stuff. I'll constantly struggle with, imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong in the fitness space? Self-confidence, stuff that, I went through in middle school and high school, even into college a little bit, those, inner demons or whatever you want to call them that just constantly in the back of your mind, that doubt that, there's always going to be people that don't want to see you succeed or, talk behind you about your back, whatever that is, letting those like negative comments, even though they're usually few and far between, letting those overshadow the ones that are lifting you up and kind of building you up. And I talk a lot about with even my team, anytime we film, to our Instagram stories or anything like that, anytime we film content or doing photo shoots and things like that, I always tell them, kind of jokingly and partially serious though too, that I just kind of black out and, fake it till I make it. And I kind of put on this persona of just this outgoing guy who's super confident when, deep down it's a real struggle to kind of put myself out there. So I say all that just to say that whoever's listening, do whatever the heck you want. In social media and things like that, you've got such a pressure to, fit the algorithm, to do all these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, you've got to enjoy what you do. And if you're confident in what you're doing and you're excited about what you're doing, people are going to feel that. And I've gotten a lot of feedback here recently, which has really been affirming to me in what I'm doing, that, even if I'm not getting the likes or the comments or the shares, whatever it is on social media, people are still seeing it and people are still benefiting from it and are making better choices, whether they hire me as a coach or not. I'm doing what I set out to do, and that's leaving a positive impact in that health and fitness space. So whoever's listening, if you're kind of on that fence of, I don't know whether to go forward and do what this is what I really enjoy. I enjoy making videos, but I'm not very good yet. Just put it out there. You get feedback, you take that messy action, you learn from it, and then you go again. And you keep going and you keep going. And when you surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed, who want to build you up, that's been other than obviously my wife, my family and things like that, but starting to coach for Fit by Hit and Fit by Strength, they've been such an affirming group of people that they want to see me succeed and find financial freedom. They want to see me succeed and the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I'm going to coach for the rest of my life, how I'm going to help them change their lives, having this team that put so much confidence into me and are constantly encouraging me and things like that. It's been awesome, and it's been life-changing for me personally. And so that's my little tidbit of encouragement for any of you listening, is just to find out what you enjoy and go for it. The people that want to support you are going to support you, and the people that don't, then their opinion doesn't really matter, does it? So there's my soapbox / encouragement / whatever for today. As far as topics I want to cover, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into a few of the topics that I've covered in the past, or whether that I've posted on social media, whether that I've posted, talked about in previous podcasts, whatever that kind of looks like. First one I wanted to kind of do is to dive a little bit deeper into the if it fits or macros concept. It's kind of what it is, what it isn't, and kind of ways to make it successful. I think you can align that if it fits your macros concept with a lot of diets there that you could potentially be following already, whether it's vegan or gluten-free or paleo or any of those sorts of things. I think you can still apply that if it fits your macros concept. Essentially what it does is it kind of makes everything a whole lot simpler. You basically, once you calculate your protein, carbs, and fats, you just treat it like a budget. And so I found that flexibility to be a lot easier for myself and for my clients, because we all have really busy schedules. And so when we're set to, eating at 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 5, whatever, it just sets us up for failure a lot of times, especially when we're super busy. Kids have to go to practices, things like that. Excuse me. And so when we treat it like a budget, then we simply know that these are the goals that we have to hit each day. We need to hit this calorie goal, and we need to hit these protein, carbs, and fats, and then we're kind of good to go. Protein and carbs are both going to have 4 calories per gram. Fat's going to have 9 calories per gram. And so that's kind of the math that goes into it. So once you have your calorie goal, protein-wise, a safe bet, especially for those of us that are lifting, a 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight is kind of that range that I set my protein at. So for me, being about 240 right now, that's anywhere between 175 to 240 grams of protein. Kind of fluctuates depending on where my body fat's at. So right now, with it being a little bit higher, I'm going more to that low end range. And then as I lean out, then I'll increase my protein a little bit. And then as far as carbs and fats go, that's where the kind of personal preference comes into play. If you're lifting and you're doing high intensity exercise, that's where the carbs become more important. And then as you're, a more sedentary lifestyle, maybe your off days, things like that, that's kind of where the fats come more into play. And so for the carbs, really good for pre and post workout, and even in the middle of your workouts. They're great for quick energy. Kind of their cons are just that they're not as filling. So a lot of people that eat those really simple carbohydrates, they're not super filling. So I always recommend pairing some sort of either switching to complex carbs, so your brown rices and things like that, even sweet potato. But usually, because I enjoy white rice and things like that, I'll pair it with a more fibrous, like vegetable, something like that. So broccoli is kind of one of those superfoods of super high in volume, super low in calorie, and super high in fiber. So it's very filling. And it also will help drop the glycemic index, like of those simple carbs, like white rice and things like that. Those can really spike insulin. So pairing it with a protein and pairing it with some sort of fibrous vegetable helps that insulin spike. There's a fun fact for you. Any of those like high insulin spiking carbs you'll see like on the glycemic index and things like that, those are 50 grams, I think, of just pure whatever that carb source is. It's just 50 grams, nothing paired with it. So when you pair it with protein, when you pair it with fiber and things like that, it drastically changes how high on that glycemic index it is. So if insulin and things like that are something that you're worried about, then pairing it with something like that really helps. And then you've got your fats that are obviously going to be higher in calories, but they're much more slow digesting. They're much more filling. So you've got your eggs, your peanut butter, nuts, avocados, oils, and things like that. So those are what I usually will do, like first thing in the morning, something, whether it's a protein bar, whether it's, eggs and something. I usually try not to eat too much in the morning. I get my coffee and kind of go to work. And then so my first meal of the day is usually pre-workout, and we normally work out around 11 or 11:30. So fats aren't usually super early in my day. It's kind of later in the day that I become more sedentary, and so I begin to incorporate more of those fats just to help keep me full. keep me from snacking late at night. Protein I keep really broken up throughout the day. I try to eat 4 to 5 meals a day, and so having small increments, if I can do 30 to 40 grams of protein at each meal, then I'll end the day hitting my protein goal, while not having to do a 3-scoop shake with some milk before bed. Nobody wants to do that. So yeah, that's kind of how I break it up. As far as you can kind of play with what those numbers somewhat look like. You can find plenty of calculators and such online. You can kind of plug your height, weight, and age into and at least help you get a ballpark. They're not going to be spot on accurate, but because you're not going to know like your body fat percentages and account for lean body mass and things like that. But it is something that can at least get you in the ballpark. And then from there, once you kind of figure out, here's roughly the calories I'm burning, here's roughly my protein intake, kind of play with carbs and fats, track everything for a week, and then see what the scale kind of does. Track it again for another week, see what the scale does, kind of compare those weekly averages, and then make adjustments from there. Usually it's a lot easier to adjust the carbs like up and down. I think I talked about that in the last podcast. That's what's always easiest for me. But at the end of the day, it really just kind of depends on your lifestyle and kind of how you want to direct, kind of how you want it to fuel your day. At the end of the day, that's kind of what your food is there for. It's an energy source. It's not for enjoyment and things like that. Unfortunately, in America, we kind of get wrapped up in it's got to taste good and it's got to make me feel good. And that's not really the case. So you got to kind of find that balance of good, healthy foods that you enjoy. That way it's sustainable and something you can do long term. And that's why I pick If It Fits Your Macros, because it's sustainable and I can do it long term. So moving on, kind of wanted to also cover the importance of a high protein diet. So it kind of goes hand in hand with If It Fits Your Macros. That's always the most shocking point of talking to clients once they get their calories, their macros. A lot of clients, I don't even worry about carbs and fats right out the gate. I set their calories and I set their protein, and then we kind of go from there, and I can dial it in later on if they need it. But those are the two most important things, is being in a caloric deficit or a surplus if that's their goal. Most of the clients I get are trying to lose weight, so making sure they're in a caloric deficit, but also making sure that protein is high enough as well. And so a lot of people don't understand why they need such a high protein diet, but when you're resistance training, it's super important for the muscle building side of things as well as the recovery side of things. There's a lot of factors obviously that go into recovery, and I touched a little bit on soreness last episode, but making sure that your protein is high enough to foster that recovery. What people, they'll hit a certain protein goal, but when it comes to the recovery process, you can still have protein break down as much as you can, like digestion. If you're in too much of a deficit, or you're not pairing it with carbs to kind of restore your glycogen stores that you've used during your workout, a lot of that protein can not be used for muscle repair and things like that. It can break down and get used for other things. So it's always important to pair it and making sure that the carbs get used to replenish energy that you just used, but then the protein goes to making sure that you're recovering well. On top of that, the higher thermogenic rate of protein. So when you eat, that's usually accounts for 10% or so of your daily caloric expenditure. So about 10% of that comes from you eating, you digesting the food, and utilizing the nutrients and things like that there. And so of the 3 macronutrients, protein has a higher thermogenic rate. So you burn slightly more calories digesting protein than you do the other macronutrients. So obviously that's a super important benefit, especially when you're in a fat loss phase. Having that higher thermogenic rate helps just slightly, but enough to make it valuable, of course. And then also you have reduced appetite, reduced cravings, helps to build strong bones, and then obviously increases your metabolism through that increased thermogenic rate, but also that increase in muscle mass for those of you that are resistance training, ensuring that you're recovering well, and not just recovering that tissue, but that your muscles are building with that progressive overload that we've kind of talked about, making sure that you're pushing yourself so that when you are recovering, that you're going above and beyond. Your muscle doesn't stay the same when it recovers, but it also recovers and then some. It builds back stronger. Sometimes you can do more damage than good if you push too hard, or if your protein's not high enough, you're breaking down your muscle. But if you're sore for a week and a half, and that's kind of that telltale sign of your protein's not high enough, or you did something wrong, you hurt yourself, pushing too hard with volume, things like that. And so making sure that you are that all those things are in check so that you can recover quickly and keep pushing yourself forward in your training. So that's a brief kind of overview just of high protein diet and kind of what that looks like, and kind of reasoning as coaches why we have it at such a high level, and just kind of that long-term importance of it. The last thing I wanted to cover today, as this episode is getting a little bit longer, was just essentially kind of your overall system for success as far as with New Year's resolutions. I mean, those have essentially come and gone. You may or may not have fallen off the wagon already. But just one of the big tips that I give my clients is when they sign up, one of the first steps in their onboarding week is just to do a kitchen audit. And basically just making sure that you are setting yourself up for success, especially as you start this fitness journey. A lot of people have really poor relationships with food. A lot of people have really weak self-control, really low self-control, myself included a lot of times. If there's Oreos in the house, can I fit an Oreo or two into my macros? Of course, but can I have an Oreo or two and not have 10 Oreos? That's a different story. And so I have clients that, they want to cut out sugar, they want to cut out cookies and things like that. And my initial instinct is, no, like, you don't have to cut out foods. Like, if it fits your macros, you can fit it in. But there does come a point that, especially when you're starting out, if you've lived a life of, binge eating, if you have a really poor relationship with food, if you have a non-supportive spouse, if you have kids, there's so many factors that come into it that if those things are in the house and you come home from a 10-hour day and you're beat and the last thing you want to do is put forth any effort towards making a healthy decision, then having these sorts of foods in the house can be a real big pitfall. Because then you binge, you eat that, well, then you feel bad and you feel this guilt and shame. You wake up the next day and the weigh-in's off. And so it's kind of this endless cycle of now the weigh-in's off and now you feel like garbage again. So now the last thing you want to do is go work out. And so I have my clients do this kitchen audits where they just go through, and kitchen audit, but I mean, really it's just a life audit, even beyond that, of just taking a look at your entire life and making sure that you're set up for success. I have clients that are not morning people, so that I suggest them. My mom is a great example. She wakes up early every day, but it's really easy to talk herself out of working out if stuff isn't ready. So she puts her clothes out, she mixes up her protein shake, she does everything like that the night before, so that way it doesn't affect. She wakes up, puts her clothes on, goes and works out, and then she's good to go. And that's a tip that I usually will do myself. If I don't have everything ready the night before, put my clothes out, gym bag out, things like that, I want to pretty much wake up, brush my teeth, pop an energy drink, and head out the door. It's a little different now with me working mostly online, but for my poor 5 a.m. clients that I had for such a long time, one of which he'll be with me for 4 years next month, which is just incredible. Such a fun time. But poor him when I was training him at Fitness One, because I would wake up and get to the gym around 4:45 a.m., crack open an energy drink, and man, I'd look like I was having the worst time of my life. So the fact that he stuck with me for 4 years says something probably about him. He never missed, he never canceled, and man, there were some mornings that I just really hated him for it. But setting yourself up for success by making sure that your systems are set in a place that are just that are for that. We go into the new year trying to change our habits, and we have this list of 10 or 15 things that we're just going to magically change and flip a switch, and now all of a sudden we're going to be good at all these things we've been bad at for so and so long. And so I really push my clients to set themselves up for success. Like, if you're not a morning person, then don't schedule your workout for the morning. If you're going to have a really busy day at lunch and not be able to get up from the desk to go eat, then pack your lunch. If you've got a 4-hour break on Sundays where you're just kind of doing nothing, use that time to meal prep. Throw on your favorite show and do meal prep. Save your cardio for in the evenings when you can go walk with your family so it doesn't cut into family time. Just kind of taking this overall audit of your life and kind of helping pick and choose. And that's a big value that I bring as a coach, and that our whole team kind of brings, is helping clients build this program that is going to fit into their already current and hectic lifestyle. If you're working 60 hours a week and then we schedule you to have 5 workouts and hit 20,000 steps a day and all this stuff, it's just not going to work. We want to do all that hard work for you. That way it can kind of slip into the cracks that you already have. It's like, hey, like, you're spending 2 hours on Netflix. Like, let's break that up a little bit. Do a 30-minute workout first, now you can walk for an hour, watch Netflix while you walk, and kind of try to find that balance. And so that's kind of where that life audit comes into play, of just taking into account all the things that could potentially derail you, making shifts there, and then hopefully setting yourself up for success. So yeah, that'll kind of do it for today's episode. If any of this kind of intrigues you, if that life audit kind of is something that you want more information on, or something that is really intriguing for you, if you're somebody that's super busy, the majority of our clients, that's it. They're at their wits' end. They want to achieve these health goals. They want to make investments in their health. They want to make long-term life change for their families. They've got kids they don't have energy to play with anymore. They're, shadows of themselves from where they were in college or even after that. They just want to feel better, and they want to look better, and they want to live longer. Those are the clients that we take on. And so if any of the information I'm talking about is intriguing to you, you want to learn more about, if you don't want to have to think about any of this and just want a program that's catered to you, and then a coach to kind of guide you along towards that success, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to meet and talk to so many of you, and sign on, obviously, as many clients as I can. You can DM Mike_FitByStrength on Instagram. I can be reached that way. Or you can email me at mike@fitbyhit.com. That's HIIT in the email, hit.com. We'd love to talk to you and love to be able to help you any way we can. That's the point of this podcast. That's the point of any of my social media, is just to be able to offer free information for as many people as that want to listen or read. But at the end of the day, I want to help as many one-on-one clients as possible as well. So making sure that everybody reaches success, everybody has that opportunity to live longer and have a good quality of life. So that'll do it for today's episode. I appreciate you all listening as usual. Tell your friends about it, share it, like it, all that good stuff. And we will see you in the next one.